There's huge rewards at the top, but at the bottom end, if you're outside the top 100, not automatic qualification for the major tournaments, it's a tough grind, a really tough grind. Not that cycling's very easy either, mind you. And the risk in this sport, well, there's barely a sport that compares to it.
No, I don't think there are sports to compare. There's sports that got higher speeds and have crashes, but there's much more protection. They're on specifically designed tracks where the spots they're likely to come off, they slide out and come to a stop. And cycling's the same. We saw that with Richie Porte. It's not so much how fast you come off, like up to a certain point, but it's how quick you stop. And that's what really does the damage. Actually, talking of crashes, we've gone through everything that happened in the Tour de France. I just want to send out a shout out to the young Italian female professional, Claudia Creti, who was riding in the Giro Rosa. She came off at almost 90 kilometres an hour and sustained quite severe head injuries. She's in hospital in Italy, fighting for her life. She's in an induced coma. So we wish her all the best, and also her family, sending all our support from the cycling family, including everybody here riding at the Tour de France, because we all know how vulnerable everybody is out there on the bike, and we really do wish her all the best for a recovery.
Yeah, we certainly do have our fingers crossed. That was horrible news coming out of the Giro Rosa. As we take a look at this park, which is part of the prehistoric region in here, and there's some extraordinary caves in this region as well, where they've found some paintings that are estimated to be between 18,000 and 17,000 years old. And as we take a look through it, this is the new part of the museum that's been opened up. This was actually just opened up before Christmas of last year. Then President Francois Hollande came down for the opening of it. The original cave was a lot further back from what they found. They've closed much of that original cave off to protect those paintings that are some 18,000 years old, and they've done some replicas throughout this museum. And it's one of those classic museums which I imagine there's a lot of school visits that come here, a real educational centre.
Well, you see that shape cut into the grass there of the steer. Well, that is one of the paintings that was found in the cave. And if you look up Lascaux and the Parital art, then you'll see pictures of it on internet, and really quite impressive. It's lasted so long, but it's really iconic pictures, those cave paintings. I'm sure when you look it up, you'll see it and you'll say to yourself, ah, yes, I've seen those before, because they've been featured in many programs on television over the years. I remember seeing it when I was a kid.
And the original cave that they found, which is 1.5 kilometres from this museum today, there's around about 250 metres long a wall within the cave of those pictures, that art from some 17 to 18,000 years ago. Adam Hansen is the rider with the black socks and the white shoes, his famous shoes that he makes himself, all smiles, having a laugh to one of his former teammates, Markus Burkhardt, the German national champion. Everybody pretty content in the peloton, a breakaway group of 2 that they're able to contain quite easily. I thought there might have been more riders optimistic about getting into the breakaway today, particularly given that there's 3 teams that won't be chasing, that would have been chasing throughout the first week. Bora Hansgrohe for Peter Sagan, FDG for Arnaud Démare, and Dimension Data for Mark Cavendish. Suspected that perhaps after the rest day, that might have opened up the window a little bit for more opportunists into the break, but clearly I was wrong. A long way off the mark. The break, it just cruised away.
Let me take you into the rider's mind, which by this stage in the Tour de France is becoming more and more empty.
And frail.
There's not a lot of energy left for thought. It's more about survival. But after this opening 9 days of the Tour de France, which has been so very difficult, and we'll talk about some stats in a few minutes from some of the riders, been kind enough to share some of their data from the race. It's a summary of the first 9 days of racing. It's quite incredible to see. But all these riders have done the same thing, ridden the same course, used all that energy. A lot of riders are on their hands and knees going into the rest day. Really needed that day off. They go for a pedal, of course, just lightly, and the rest is all about recovery. But seeing how hard the first 9 days has been, we've still got to go through the Pyrenees and the Alps. There's so much tough racing to come. We're only a couple of days away from the Pyrenees. Yet on flat stages like this, the likelihood of staying away, not being caught by the sprinters teams, is minuscule. So although there's not a lot of energy left to put into thought, the riders' heads are getting empty, they're still smart enough to know this is a big waste of energy. And this is energy I wish I would have saved when I get to the Pyrenees. That's why you won't see many of them go now. They're taking the chance to roll through today. I think tomorrow will be quite a similar scenario on the roads to Pau, because we start to think about the Pyrenees, and there are some giant stages still to come in the mountains. I'm not surprised that they're not going up the road.
And tomorrow, the course lends itself. The following day, on Thursday, the 13th, stage 12, it is a mountaintop finish to Périgueux, and then the following day, it's Bastille Day. It's a Friday, a day of celebration, a festival day here in France, and it is a stage to celebrate. Just 101 kilometres with 3 Category 1 climbs. That could prove to be yet an even more explosive day than what we saw on Sunday. But Saint-Christophe, which is a rock of quite some significance, situated just to the left bank of the river, orientated to the northeast, magnificent limestone rock stretching that cave that you can see for almost 1 kilometre long. And throughout the first millennium, the Vikings, they represented a significant threat to the people of this region, and they used to come up here and hide, and particularly throughout the big attack of the Vikings in 849. But the countryside was so often unstable, the various lords in the regions, they used to fight between themselves as well. So the residents, they built themselves quite an existence up here on the rock of Saint-Christophe. And a number of the population, they came up here throughout the siege of the 100-Year War to try and make sure that they were able to survive. And there was also a burial site at the bottom throughout the Bronze Age, 1000 BC. Saint-Christophe, the rock of Saint-Christophe.
Well, Matt, sorry to stop your cultural role, but it makes me think of Fred Flintstone.
What about Barney Rubble? Does he get an invite?
He always gets an invite.
Always around at his mate's house. Well, as for the rider out in front, Johan Alfredo, he's got somebody on board with him. A photo of his 2 kids on his top tube.
Now, before we got those nice sunflower shots and the shot of the Rock of Saint-Christophe up, going back to Rick Zabel, young professional, now at the Katusha team, really starting to find his feet in the pro ranks. And this year, there's 2 things in particular he did that impressed me, and they weren't wins, but team contributions. One of them was a lead out at the Tour of California, and in the end, Alexander Kristoff wasn't able to come off him, and Rick Zabel ran second to the eventual winner after leading out for 500 metres from the finish. The other one he did was the Rundum Finanzplatz in Frankfurt, the race that's always been known as the Grand Prix Frankfurt, Rundum Hennigerturm in the past. He was on the front from 2 kilometres to go, leading out Alexander Kristoff. Kristoff won the race. Rick Zabel was second. He's really got some stuff, and I think he'll be super important for Alexander Kristoff today. And it'll be a matter of getting into that last corner, at least with one teammate in front of you, and from that last corner, just go, give it everything. And it's this type of finish, I think, that may catch out Marcel Kittel. We've seen his positioning has been a little bit, left a little bit to be desired over the first part of this tour. The only day he was really there was Nuit Saint-Georges, which he won by 3/10,000ths of a second. But he said himself he made a bit of a mistake there. He thought it was still 200 metres to go. It was only 120, but he still won. He made mistakes on the other days, but he still won, came from a long way back. But really flowing open roads, long final straight. Today, it's a straight of 500 metres. If he's not in position, it's going to make it more difficult than ever to get himself back to the front. And it's a real chance for the other teams to exploit his lack of good positioning in the final kilometre to try and put him out of the game.
How much of a sprint will it be to that last left-hand corner? Because it's slightly downhill as well, and I think they'll hit speeds of 70, 75 kilometres per hour getting to the corner.
It's that section from 2 kilometres until about 900 metres to go. That's where you hit the first left-hander, and it goes into quite a narrow street. So it goes from very wide, bottlenecks in. That corner's not too bad. It's only a couple of 100 metres to the final corner then, and it gets even more narrow. So the biggest race will be to the first left-hander. After that, you'll have a chance to, with it being single file, which I expect, pretty much in the first nearly 10 positions, to kick out of that last corner and really stretch the peloton. Riders who are any further back than probably 8th wheel, they're going to have to do a full sprint out of the last corner just to get back into the slipstream. After that, then the real sprint is starting. So if you're too far back, you're essentially going to be riding a 500-metre sprint. So I think we'll see riders start to blow up and little gaps start to form, riders in the saddle in the sprint. So it's all about positioning and have a rider with you from your team who can guide you from that 500 metres to go through to about 200. And I think it's going to be a really rapid sprint. Not too much wind around today. Looking out, looking at the trees in front of us, very, very slight breeze. If anything, a very slight headwind, but almost nothing.
Other obstacles on the course today. There are 2 Category 4 climbs. The first one, the Côte de Dôme, that comes with 177 kilometres to go. At least the top of it does. They start the climb at 181 kilometres to go. The intermediate sprint then is at the 57k to go mark, and they're then on to the next climb of the day, which tops out with still 40 kilometres to race. So a few obstacles to come on the course today. Breakaway group of 2. The peloton has settled in for its chase. This is Elia Gilbert at the back of the breakaway group for the Fortunato Oscaro team. And he's joined by Johan Alfredo, the man who started it all in the blue colours for Wanty Group Goubert. Again, these 2 teams in the breakaway, no surprises. They don't really have any bunch sprinters within their group, but they do have, for the Fortunato Oscaro team, Dan McClay, who I don't believe can win the stage today, but will finish somewhere inside the top 10. And across at Wanty Group Goubert for the Kiwis, Dion Smith has been close to a couple of top 10 placings throughout. And I'd like to see how he features today and what the mood is like amongst the Kiwis after heading into the rest day, where we've got George Bennett sitting in 10th position overall. For the Quick Step team on the rest day, they were entertained by Jack Bauer playing the guitar. The Kiwi plays guitar, the drums, the piano, just about everything. Today, though, for the New Zealanders, the man to watch is Dion Smith.
Funny you say that, Matt, because I've been going through the start list and I've been using your highlighter. Sorry, I probably didn't put it back in the right spot in the lineup there.
It's got to be in order.
Just to throw you out.
But look at this house that's been built.
You can give us the rundown here on this maison.
Built into the cliff. This was quite extraordinary, dating way back until the 16th century on a site that was previously occupied throughout the prehistoric period. And you can see the caves at the top that go all the way back to the previous rock of St. Christopher that we were able to see. There's some 12 fireplaces within that house. I'm not sure where the chimneys let the smoke get out. Fortification that was to try and resist all the bandits that used to roam throughout the area. And the lord who lived there exercised his power over those that were his minions. And he actually peted out a fair bit of punishment. And there's now an exhibition within that beautiful old home, which has got quite a sad story behind it in some respects. There's an exhibition of torture and capital punishment. So the lord from way back in around about the 15th, 16th century sounded like a bit of a meanie. Would be the polite way to put it.
Bit of a meanie. That's one of the expressions my youngest daughter uses. You're a meanie.
I sound like a dad talking to one of his kids, don't I?
Well, just look at that house. I'm not sure how much it'd be worth, Matt. It's got no backyard.
It's got a big front yard, though. Gorgeous region today. Heading down through the valley, this beautiful river that runs for some 200 plus kilometres. Out the breakaway, they're enjoying an advantage of 5 minutes and 30 seconds. At the peloton, it's Quick Step once again with Julien Vermont doing the chasing, followed by Tiago Machado.
Back to the peloton is Esteban Chavez on the right.
Rocks, paper, scissors by the looks of it that he was playing with Matthew Heyman. his roommate.
As Quick Step start to line it up with the whole team, Fabio Sabatini in front of Marcel Kittel. Right behind Kittel, Andre Greipel, Alexander Kristoff there with a teammate.
And the Sunweb team in the white and black colours, they're lining up. We heard just before from Luke Roberts, their sports director, and they've said here, Michael Matthews can't really gain points on Marcel Kittel, but he can't afford to lose points, so he has to contest.
No, it has to be up there in amongst it, and probably better for him to have his own team doing their lead out, and they were just making their acceleration on the right-hand side, because we've seen the last few days, when it's an intermediate sprint, Michael Matthews has been getting shuffled back by the pure sprinters who are prepared to use the shoulder, use a bit of elbow, use a bit of intimidation. And Michael Matthews has just been shunted a few positions, so choosing just to use his own team, take his own line, and he has shown when he's had some clear space, he's got speed to burn at the moment. He's been taking these riders on. So now doing it on his own with his team. Quick Step on the left. Sunweb, a little bit blocked in. Matthews right in the middle. His teammate goes on the right. Quick Step on the left. Matthews got a little head start at the moment on Andre Greipel and Marcel Kittel.
Now he's caught. He's just been boxed in. He has to backpedal ever so slightly. He tries to pick up the green jersey, but he goes on by. Kittel waiting patiently. Bahrain Merida coming by, trying to set it up for Sonny Colbrelli. Now Greipel goes. It's the red versus the green. Kittel looking to collect more points. Greipel with his nose just in front. Matthews squeezing through the middle. It's Greipel ahead of Kittel and then Kristoff.
And then Matthews. Exactly what we spoke about. Now, Greipel, this is the second time he's managed to take on Marcel Kittel. Coming out of the wheel, but Kittel, I'm sure, with a points buffer like he has, willing to sprint at around 90%, going late, trying to make it as short as possible. Greipel taking advantage of that, jumping away. Kristoff coming in behind those two, and another teammate in between Kristoff and Michael Matthews. And exactly what I spoke about, when Matthews is amongst the real sprinters, he tends to get shuffled back. His team went a little bit early, he got a little bit boxed in, and when he did go, he was coming from so far behind, just getting shuffled back by the real sprinters, prepared to take a risk. But no disaster. He's given back a few more points to Marcel Kittel, and I expect him to give even more at the finish. But like Luke Roberts, his team director, said, it's about being amongst it and getting some points, limiting the damage. Same story again tomorrow on another flat stage. But as the race gets harder, and possibly a stage like Rodez, that's where Matthews can score to a possible 0 of Marcel Kittel. But the thing is, when it's a medium mountain or a hilly stage or uphill finish, mostly it's the case that it's only worth 30 points for the win, not 50.
Which is the case on stage 14.
Exactly.
This year really does favour a sprinter like Marcel Kittel, and I would have dearly loved to have seen the outcome with Peter Sagan still in the race, because he'd be in the same position as Michael Matthews, getting the maximum points on days where there's 30 for the win, as he did on stage 3, whilst Kittel's winning stages with 50 points for the win, favouring the super fast guys for green.
I think Marcel Kittel, honestly, would still be in front at the moment with a healthy lead over anybody, including Peter Sagan if he was still in the Tour. But what we saw Sagan do in previous years, Matthews tried to do that the day before yesterday, and with success, getting into the break on a hard stage, taking maximum points in the intermediate sprint, grabbing those 20. But Peter Sagan has been able to do that in years gone by, both getting in the break and taking the intermediate sprint, but also surviving on some really tough stages to either win or finish in the top 3 and take big points and extend his lead as well. Michael Matthews is going to have to be in almost every break if he's going to peg back Marcel Kittel. Kittel's got today and tomorrow, that's to his advantage. I think Kittel'll struggle on stages 14 and 16. That's where Matthews needs to perform, and Matthews has to try and get in breaks on the mountain stages. That's a big ask.
It was an emotional day yesterday for Michael Matthews. He sent a message to Richie Porte, wishing him all the best, hoping for a quick recovery. And Richie sent back a message saying, you go out there and get the green jersey and I'll be the happiest guy in the world. And so he's got the support of Richie Porte in his pursuit of the green jersey, but he has got the task against him. Marcel Kittel in that intermediate sprint, he looked to me to be around about 80, 85%. And he's gone from having an 82-point lead ahead of Andre Greipel to an 80-point lead.
Fall, but not far from it. Our 2 leaders, 10 kilometres to go, 18 seconds the gap. They're getting mowed down, and at the moment, it's Team Sky leading the peloton with Chris Froome in tow.
And again, the green jersey of Marcel Kittel has been shuffled back ever so slightly and has some work to do just to return to the front, but he's got time. This is the 10-kilometre arch for the peloton. He's still got plenty of time. He's left it late in the past and he's managed to get there.
He's got time. He's got just over 10 minutes time to get back to the front. We've seen him do it 3 times. See him there, left of picture, about 23rd position into that roundabout. And for mine, he's already just a little bit too far back. And his team maybe not quite well enough together. 1 at the front, 1 on his own, 2 together, then Kittel a couple of positions away. And this is what Lotto Soudal will be relying on, because they are in perfect harmony all together. And if they get it at the right moment, they could really isolate Marcel Kittel and leave him with too much to do.
And you could still see Lars back in the red colours of Lotto Soudal talking. Our 2 leaders still off in front. Greg Henderson, a former member of that Lotto Soudal team, he made the statement publicly a couple of days ago, giving them some encouragement. You're doing everything right. Eventually, luck will run out for the others, but perfect execution will bring a result. And at some point, Marcel Kittel can't keep making these mistakes and getting away with it, surely. Or is he that good?
He is that good.
He is.
There's going to be a time where you're going to pay for one of those mistakes. And what Greg Henderson said is exactly right. They're doing everything right. They'll get the right run soon. And the last 8 years of Grand Tour races that Andre Greipel has started in, he's won a stage.
Unbelievable.
Don't bet against him.
The red colours of BMC coming through to the front. Now you can see the black and yellow colours. Lotto NL Jumbo for the Dutchman, Dylan Groenewegen. Race Radio just indicating, I think, that Ali Gilbert has been awarded the most combative prize. We'll wait for confirmation, because it's been the other rider, Johan Alfredo, who's done the lion's share of the pacemaking.
Well, if he does get it, I'm going to call it the Encouragement Award, because it's clear who started the break, it's clear who did the most work in the break, but Alfredo's already had it. Gilbert, young, birthday on the first day, made a good effort. Encouragement Award / combativity.
Well, they're still to be caught. 8 seconds their advantage. It's the Lotto Soudal at the front, continuing to set the tempo with Thomas de Gent. Big wide boulevard through here. Nowhere to hide for the leading 2. The look across the shoulder of Johan Alfredo, and he will have seen a sea of peloton behind him.
10 seconds left, 7.4 kilometres. The instructions still coming from Lars Bak.
Hand Signals International, Julien Vermont still at the head of the peloton for Quick Step. The green jersey, left-hand side of the screen, and there is a punch-on with Nasser Bouhanni. Abusive conversation. It looked like it was Jack Bauer.
It was.
Not the man to mess with. Careful, Nasser, you're out of your weight division.
And quite possibly out of his element as well. But that was completely in vision. I'm sure that that'll be spoken about more after the race. Talking of our jury of commissaires with work to do.
2 breakaway riders just caught. Elia Gilbert and Johan Alfredo doing the right thing, Robbie, getting to the side of the road and out of the way. The race is on at the front.
Lars Bak, Vermont, John Degenkolb being brought forward by Koen de Kort. Sylvain Chavanel in the middle. They're trying to bring Adrien Petit. And here is Thomas de Gent. Done the chasing, and there goes Johan Alfredo. He's done the escaping, but not for long enough.
These wide roads make it even more difficult for the teams of the sprinters to control things. There's room for others to move around.
Well, there's so much room to come out of the slipstream and ride past with your whole team. So you see so many different teams getting up the front. Direct Energy here. Astana bringing Aru. There's Marcel Kittel. You just caught a glimpse of him. Quick Step with Brambilla come back across. Adam Hansen is the man from Lotto Soudal in the wheel of Brambilla. Quick Step, there's Bauer looking behind, trying to find Marcel Kittel. We know Nasser Bouhanni is fired up. And on the other side of the road, There's a whole host of other teams trying to get forward. Lotto NL Jumbo here in the black and yellow with Groenewegen, Katusha for Alexander Kristoff.
The man in the black and Bar was also there, but he's not in the blue colours.
Colour.
And now we see Johan Gen in the black and yellow colours for Direct Energy, trying to bring forward Adrian Petit.
And here's another race. We saw it before. It bottlenecked and then a right-hand turn through the roundabout at 3 kilometres to go. So now's an intermediate 300-metre sprint. Tim Wellens, he's from Lotto Soudal on the front. This is the bridge they're going to cross. You see the peloton on the left, hard right-hand corner, across the bridge onto the side of the finish. 2.5 kilometres to go when they get to the end of the bridge. Once they get through that kink to the right, 2.5 kilometres to go. One straight line until 900 metres out. Sharp left, another 200. Sharp left, 500 to the finish.
From the 2 kilometre arch down to that left-hander at 900 metres, it's slightly downhill and it's wide. There'll be speeds of 70 kilometres per hour.
It's about 25 metres wide. There is so much room to pass and really high speed. Riding on the front, you're a little bit vulnerable from teams coming from the back. Marcel Kittel on the right, teammate in front of him. Lotto Soudal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in a row.
And at the moment, it's their two climbers. Wellens gets out of the way. It's now Tish Benoot, who is fighting for position with the teammates of Sonny Colbrelli from Bahrain Merida. Katusha line up with Alexander Kristoff. Degenkolb has got himself in the mix in the white colours.
Bahrain Merida on the front, but this is perfect for Lotto Soudal. Use them up. Look at that, hitting out of the wheel. Lotto Soudal, then another Bahrain Merida in between, but effectively, he's becoming another teammate for Andre Greipel. Under the 2 kilometre to go. This is now the drag race, down through the kilometre to that left-hand bend. Everybody knows it. Direct Energy trying to come on the right of screen from this heli shot. Bernard Eisel looking around. Where is Bossenhagen? Where is Rens van Rensburg? And Marcel Kittel trying to make his way up behind his teammate in blue on the left of screen.
And now the fight for position as we see Marcel Seberg trying to re-establish for the team Lotto Soudal. It's Adrian Petit on the front, so he's not doing the sprinting.
This is Angelo Tulik.
No, it's Thomas Buda, a former world champion on the track in the Omnium.
He's won a couple of bunch sprints this season, so not the man we thought they would go for. Dropping back through is Petit. Here's that drag race. Katusha now go to the front. Andre Greipel pushing his way through. 1 kilometre to go. Jürgen Rulands, he's on the front. Doesn't want to be there yet. Greipel looking around, position in. Marcel Kittel, he's in about 15th wheel. Nasser Bouhanni, he's in 5th, right in the perfect spot.
Nasser Bouhanni, the bullet with the black helmet, has got himself behind Andre Greipel. Sabatini in blue stepping out with the green jersey. A lot of work to do.
Marcel Kittel getting back into range. Bouhanni, he's throwing the hooks. Here's that tight corner. Rulands, Haller, Kristoff, Greipel. Is this going to be the day for Andre Greipel?
It's Marco Haller who opens up in front. It's then Alexander Kristoff. It is Kofita's coming forward for Nasser Bouhanni. A grimace of the teeth for Andre Greipel. McClay coming through in white. Bouhanni gets on a Dan McClay's wheel. It's Kittel coming home. He reigns supreme. Kittel is the king of the sprints. He'll collect another one. He'll make it 4. It's Kittel again.
Degenkolb in second, Dylan Groenewegen for third, and Andre Greipel just a bit too far forward into that breeze. Got boxed in on both sides, couldn't get away. Andre Greipel, and Kittel, here he comes. Watch him line him up. That arrow, that's Greipel. Lines up the slipstream of McClay, hits the front. Bouhanni comes out, gets blasted away. Greipel caught in. John Degenkolb follows through the gap. Dylan Groenewegen sits, stops, waits, goes again. No doubt about the winner. Look at the gap. Daylight second. Let's call him John Degenkolb. Dylan Groenewegen in third. That's number 4 for the man in green. Extends his lead in the competition. And without a doubt in the world, this man is the fastest bike rider on the road in the world.
And I'm sure we'll hear more about the incident, which from the helicopter shot, it looked like it was Nasser Bouhanni with Jack Bauer. There is the chaser of the day, the breakaway killer, Julien Vermont. and the moment they get to see each other. What a combination. We don't see Vermont in the last few kilometres. We see him all day long, and he does it wonderfully. Another one of the wonderful chateaux just on the outskirts of Bergerac, where today's stage is concluding. Not too far from here, the stage gets underway tomorrow. This one that we're looking at now dates back to the 15th century. It has been listed as a historical monument since 1992. And as recently as the 1980s, it was left abandoned before the civil society of the region took ownership of it and redeveloped it. Now a wonderful tourist attraction. It looks as if there's plenty of people down there enjoying it today. We roll out across the rolling terrain. Tomorrow it's into the high mountains. If you joined us a little bit earlier on, you will have seen the graphic, the 3D image, and Pau is effectively known as the gateway to the Pyrenees, and that's where we head tomorrow for a huge day of climbing. Lars Bak settling in at the front, and they've started to take some time back. At one point it was out to 4:40. Now it's coming back down under the 4-minute and 30-second mark. So the job being done by the 2 men at the front, Vermont, and also Bak, is starting to have its effect.
Well, Matt, look at this one. Le Chateau de Malvirade. Look at that garden.
It is an impressive garden, isn't it? This was the home back in 1136 for Eleanor of Aquitaine. It had watchtowers here. It was a defensive fort. But after the revolution, the Baron of La Valette from the Empire started to have it restored and passed it on to the Counts of Fermal up until 1950, when then they disbanded it. They just disappeared, and it was left uninhabited for a number of years, for around about 40 years. And then there was a large renovation work that was done in 1990. And since then, it's been open to be able to hire for various events, including weddings, seminars, or you can hide it as a nice weekend getaway. A lot more forceful, the breakaway today, by comparison to what we saw yesterday. There were just 2 men off the front yesterday. Elia Gilbert, the young Frenchman from Fortunato Oscaro, along with another one of the Frenchmen from Wanty Group Gilbert, Johan Alfredo. And they played that game of chicken or dare with the peloton. We're going to just set this tempo, chase, let us go or don't let us go. These three are really forcing the issue. They're moving with a lot more vigour out in front. Matej Bodnar is a dangerous man in the breakaway. The rider who sits at the front, the 4th place finisher from the World Championships last year in the individual time trial. Doesn't get too many opportunities to race for himself. Now's the chance. Normally it's for Peter Sagan or Rafael Majka. Both those teammates out of the race. A great opportunity for Matej Bodnar.
It is a fantastic opportunity. There's a number of riders like him in the race. I'm not saying physically like him because he's so very strong. But there's a number of riders being put in that position now where they'll get the chance. It's just if they're good enough to go and grab it, if they're strong enough and have got that morale, that mentality, the motivation from within themselves. Because it can be difficult for guys when they come into a tour with a certain job to do and then lose the leaders. They're a bit lost. But the really good ones, they see the glass half full, and they say, well, here's a chance to really make a name for myself. And Bodnar, he's chosen his flat stages. Bernard Eisel on the front. Now, that's not an attack. Not even sure they're going to help with the chase. They've got Edouard Boasson-Hagen, who went close a few days ago in Nuit Saint-Georges. Close. 3/10,000ths of a second away from the win.
Should have been a dead heat.
I'm thinking maybe Bernard Eisel has just come to the front, swapping sides of the road, possibly.
Boasson-Hagen was also near the front.
I wouldn't recommend that they help with the chase on a day like this. You never know, but I would think Boasson-Hagen would be better served with Bernard Eisel waiting and helping at the end to get him in position. Not an out-and-out sprinter, Boasson-Hagen. You might say, what? He nearly beat Marcel Kittel. different type of finish, different type of sprint. It was 5 kilometres at nearly 70 kilometres an hour. It was like sprinting at the end of a prologue. Everybody was completely in the red zone, wound out. That's where Bossenhagen is very, very good. But today, I think they won't chase, won't assist, or at least I think they shouldn't. They should try.
Makato's not interested. If he's doing this much work at this point, he just wants to maintain their lead.
Bacart making sure he's got some open space. Marcado from the right, more across to the left. Bacart underneath the wheel at the moment. If he wants to win it, he should just back off a little bit and then hit him. But maybe there's an agreement already about who's going to get what.
Well, Marco Mercado, with all this pacemaking that he's done at the front, is sure not to win the intermediate sprint if Bacart gets started. And now he's just trying to drift through to the front. It looks like an agreement has been made. Marco Mercado coming through to the front. Bodnar not interested. There's an agreement. That's a surprise. I really thought Bacart would go for the sprint.
You could be forgiven for saying, well, that's a disappointment. But it's encouraging at the same time if you think that these three guys see a future in this break. They're not going to fight it out, waste their energy sprinting. They're just going to keep riding that tempo. 60k to go, 2.5 minutes. Just keep cruising like they are. And at a certain moment, really put their heads down, get absolutely everything to try and hold this peloton off. So in a way, there's a belief that they can make it. That's why they're not sprinting.
And they're about to hit this Category 4 climb, which is just 1.2 kilometres in length. But our attention will turn back to the peloton and the race for the remaining points.
And it's Sunweb on the front for Michael Matthews. Now, Matthews has been shuffled back a lot in these intermediate sprints. His team has got him up there in a certain moment. The big sprinters come through. And he's been shuffled out of position. Quick step now to the front. 3 from Sunweb. That's Michael Matthews. Behind him, Alexander Kristoff. Then Sabatini, Kittel in green. Andre Greipel on the wheel of Kittel. Sonny Colbrelli. And then another of the quick step riders. They'll play no further role in the sprint. And it's Jack Bauer who starts to wind things up.
It's Bauer at the front. Mike Turnison is the next. He opens up. It's then Nicky Hassan, followed by Michael Matthews, Kristoff in the red, then Sabatini, and the comfortable-looking green jersey of Marcel Kittel is still floating in the wheels like he's body surfing, working his way through to the shore. And at the front, it's now Nicky Hassan, still patient as Marcel Kittel goes off his lead-out man and into the slipstream of Alexander Kristoff. Michael Matthews from 200 metres. It's now Alexander Kristoff, and Kittel hasn't even gotten out of the saddle. It's not full-blooded. It's Kristoff at the front from Matthews, then Marcel Kittel without getting out of the saddle. He did not drop an extra calorie in that sprint, Robbie.
Andre Greipel, the same thing. But look at Marcel Kittel. These two sprinting. Look at the body language. And Marcel Kittel even sitting up, stopping pedaling. He did not lift his rear. But look at Greipel as well. Colbrelli, no one prepared to make a real full effort. It was just the first two really sprinting it out. Marcel Kittel, he knows his lead is big enough, just needs to get a few points. Doesn't matter if he gives away a couple to those guys.
But his lead has been reduced from 102 points to 101. 50 points up for the stage victory, 30 for second, 20 for third. That's where you need to win. And from the Côte d'Ur-sur-l'Adour, this is a Category 4 climb. Just 1 point up for grabs at the top of the climb. Now Frederick Bacart is leading. Marco Mercado just behind him. The Irish flag, they've got a lot to cheer about with Dan Martin and Nicholas Roach. Dan Martin in particular sitting in 6th position in the overall standings. The red number today being worn by yesterday's most combative winner. That was Alia Gilbert. Côte-sur-l'Adour is now we're seeing attack. This is Rudy Mollard who's going forward for FDJ, using this as a launching pad to try and ride across to the breakaway. Bacart collects the point ahead of Mercado, no points, and Bodnar still sitting at the back end, just riding patiently and cooperating. Crash into peloton now as well. Bottleneck. Again, one of the riders from the Astana team involved in it, and that is Michael Valgren. No one on the deck, though, by the looks of it.
Just one rider getting up under the trees there. Looks to be from Bahrain because he's got Arashiro waiting for him. He was also down, but another rider.
There you could see, this is Arthur Visho from FDJ. But just ahead of Arthur Visho, there was also the white Factor bike from AG2R Le Mondial, which, as this is Sonny Colbrelli, who's not too happy, was just in the sprint. Romain Bardet was caught up by that fall. He's landed heavily on his back, Arthur Visho, and he's not happy.
Well, he's remonstrating at everybody, including the medical service team. In the meantime, he's got a teammate off the front. And we talked about teams who have been decapitated, lost their leaders, FDJ. Well, they've got Thibaut Pinot, but no Demar, so no sprint option. They've got no Guarnieri. They do have Chimole who'll try, but Visho, he just dropped his bike in the middle of the street and just started walking back down the course.
There was a giant bike going backwards as well from the Sunweb team, and it was either number 141 or 143. Either Michael Matthews or Warren Barguil. I couldn't quite pick it up as it went backwards. So one of the riders from that team has gone down and needs a new bike. The race now inside the last 60 kilometres is changing complexion.
And that FDJ rider that launched the attack, well, he's not going on with it, so maybe he's heard one of his teammates is down, there's been a crash, and he's decided to stop with his effort. Really more about his own teammate being on the deck. And general truce at the front. But look at that gap, Matt. 1 minute and 11 seconds, 1:10 with 57 to go. So that the speed leading into the sprint, remember it was 2 minutes 36 before the sprint. So they've lost 1 minute 25. And at the moment, this may be a situation where they get some of that time back. He's crashing the peloton, maybe at the front, so let's just tone it down for a moment, let everybody come back. And that could be the opportunity for the break to open back out again, because their gap, I mean, they'll see them on the road. They'll only be about 800 metres in front of them.
Look at the split in the peloton. The peloton is waiting. There's been a huge group of riders caught out by that fall.
That's why you really see the pace going off at the front. I know a lot of riders have been involved, a lot of riders have been held up, not actually crashed, but just stuck behind it. So we just see through the trees, not everybody who was involved, but it was certainly completely blocked. A lot of riders having to clip out and stand there and just wait for it to get going. And at the front, no urgency, different story on the chase back. They just don't trust it.
This is the front of the race.
Get back up there before someone changes their mind.
And at the front, having lunch, that is Jack Bauer. Here is Arthur Visho back with the race doctor. The race doctor has been too busy today. Sprayed, disinfected, making sure that that wound is clean. You could almost feel the strain on his glutes as he was in that position and really kicking and gouging. This is Vermont. And look at the expression on the face in second position of Lars Bak. It's contorted in agony. And he's been sitting the wheels from back in the peloton whilst doing quite a bit of the chasing. Another fall. And
Contador.
Alberto Contador caught up in the fall. The teammate
Gogol
with him is Michael Gogol. And look at Alberto Contador. The expression on his face just says, not another one, surely. Complete frustration and disappointment for Alberto Contador. Pantano is the rider who's come back for him. And now Alberto has got a chase on his hands, one that he didn't need.
Gogol didn't look all too well on the ground. Alberto Contador, on the other hand, straight back on his feet. A look of disgust and, well, a look of disbelief almost. He's gone down again, but with a teammate. Gogol looks like he's going to, I mean, obviously at quite high speed. They're riding around 50 kilometres an hour. Alberto Contador now with a chase, trying to just get into the slipstream of the cars. Pantano is the only teammate with him, and good to see Gogol getting back underway. He'll trickle into the finish. No problem with the time cut today. He's close enough. But the question is, will he be able to continue, and how sore will he be from this crash?
Alberto Contador, he's been on the back foot throughout this year's race, and you can see on the right hip of Alberto Contador has opened up a gouge. It's gone through the nicks. That will be another restless night's sleep for Alberto Contador before we hit the Pyrenees. He'll pay the price for this. He won't finish perhaps even inside the top 10 at this year's Tour de France. In fact, he could finish somewhere down towards 20th position overall at the rate that he's going.
Well, at the moment, he's 12th at 5:15, but this is at least his third crash this Tour, possibly the fourth.
Well, he had two crashes on the one day into Chambéry.
Yeah, so it's at least three. Alberto Contador really can't take a trick at the moment, and we talked about those nervous moments coming in the peloton because that little bit of wind and just the fight for position, and like they're already thinking about the Pyrenees. As Matej Bodnar, he's thinking about one thing, and it's Pau. 20 kilometres to go, 44 seconds for the Polish TT champion.
And Alberto Contador is flat out staying in the slipstream of Jalison Pantano, the Colombian climber from Trek Segafredo. Speed, 43.7 k's per hour. It's been a pretty quick day.
Done by just 3 riders, really, that setting that pace. And there he is, Contador. Maybe called it 2 seconds too soon, but basically he was there. He was at the back of the first car behind the peloton. Back in the bunch, I wonder now how much of an effort he'll make to try and move up, get position near the front, or just take it easy, avoid another crash at all costs, and just follow the peloton in.
Because today there's the 3-second rule. In addition to being inside the last 3 kilometres, there needs to be a gap in the peloton of 3 seconds or more for any gap to be included in the general classification. That's an attempt by the race organisers to make things a little safer. On the sprint stages, previously it was 1 second. Now it's 3.
The run-in's not overly technical today, but just inside 3 kilometres to go, there's a roundabout where they've got a pass on the left-hand side, and it looks on the map to be a little bit smaller than the other roundabouts, in between 5 and 4 kilometres to go. That could be a point where it's a real funnel. They're going to have to squeeze in and around on one side of the road. Possible there, maybe not a crash, but just a touch of brakes, a prop in the peloton, then accelerating again, that someone will lose the wheel, that'll cause a split. And that's easily a place that could cause a break in the peloton. They end up being more than 3 seconds on the finish line. So then the time gets taken from the winner on the line until the first person of that chasing group. So what could be just over a 3-second gap in the peloton could effectively be a 25-second gap. That's why.
But he still maintains his composure. You can see the face of pain of Bodnar, but it's a face of determination as he wrestles with the bike and he argues with the peloton in search of Pau.
Another 2 kilometres, and Matej Bodnar has been off the front of the Tour de France today for 200 kilometres. He now has 23 seconds. He's given back 20 seconds over the last 5 kilometres. If he can hold 20 seconds for the next 5, he's a little chance, but the sprinters teams are ready to accelerate. Sunweb on the left, Lotto up there, Team Katusha lined up. Still no sign of Marcel Kittel, but when has there been? And he's won 4 already.
Last time I spotted him about 20th position. And for Bodnar, the bad news here is at 5 kilometres, 22 seconds, they can see him.
They can see him. He'll swing right through this big roundabout. In fact, so open, you'll hardly tell it's a roundabout. Tony Martin now for Katusha Alpecin. Up the middle, just like we saw yesterday, Direct Energy, that's Yuan Zhen leading them up. Thomas Bouda in the line also.
Chavanel, then Adrian Petit, and then Bouda. He's the man that they're working for today, just as they did yesterday.
Also inside 5 kilometres to go now. 17, 18 seconds the gap for Bodnar as they swing right. Bodnar, 500 metres ahead of the peloton into the next roundabout, just inside 4 kilometres to go. This is what he needs. The more technical, the better. He has a chance of not losing seconds in a section like this. 17 seconds the gap, just outside 4K to go.
All of Poland is behind him. So to anybody associated with the Bora team, Peter Sagan, the world champion, surely is cheering and hoping that Bodnar can defy the odds. But the sprinters now, they've got him within their sights. It's Direct Energy who are at the front.
They've now got a long, wide section here, about 1.7 kilometres to the next roundabout, the one they have to pass on the left-hand side. They'll have Bodnar now firmly in their sights. Direct Energy on the front of the peloton. The flick of both elbows. Boys, speed hump coming up. Hang on tight. 17 seconds with 3.5K to go. It is far from over. He's not a big chance. One thing he won't do is surrender.
This is Scott Thwaites now at the front, doing the job for Dimension Data. And Bodnar is starting to fade. You can feel his pain. It must be excruciating as the green jersey arrives at 3.5 kilometres to go.
Well, 16 seconds, 15 now. You'd think he'd need that sort of gap to be able to stay in front with just 1 kilometre remaining. Still just outside 3. But this man, we saw the incredible ride he did last year with Sagan, Froome and Thomas, held off the bunch into Montpellier. 14 seconds, they can see him. It's so straight, it's so wide. That's the 3 kilometre banner in front of him now. A look over the shoulder. Don't do it, the race is in front. It doesn't matter when they catch you. He's the hero of the day. 11 seconds, 12, 13. Can we get an accurate time gap? I'd love to see where the peloton are at the moment. Sunweb trying to move up on the right. One rider, Michael Matthews further back. On the right, Chris Froome in yellow. Marcel Kittel, this is as far forward as we've seen him.
Stybar is the rider at the front. The Czech Republic national champion and a teammate of Marcel Kittel. So far throughout this race, Marcel Kittel has been flying in economy. Now he's got himself in first class, just behind the cockpit, with Sabatini in front of him.
Well, in front of that, Dimension Data well organised. 4 riders, Thwaites, Eisel, Van Rensburg and Bossenhagen lined out. 5 seconds now, the gap for Bodnar. Just over 2 kilometres to go, but there goes the motorbike from in between now. That will have been the one that we've been getting our time gaps from. That's why that's disappeared. They're out of the same roundabout now. 2K to go, and they're about to sweep up Bodnar. The man from Bora Hansgrohe, he'll have to try it another day. It looks like it's now over to the sprinters.
A brave performance by Bodnar, 2 kilometres. They still have to collect him.
Still a sizable gap, and I think they've underestimated Bodnar. They've jumped out of the gap between, but that is still a decent gap.
They have not underestimated him. Not at all. Look at the riders they've put to the front. He's just so strong.
I think the officials on the motorbikes have underestimated him by getting out of the way because they thought he's being caught right then. That is still a decent gap. 1.5 kilometres to go. Just outside the kilometre. Tight 90-degree left-hand corner. Still can't see the finish from there. In sight, 1.5K to go. They won't catch him till he's inside the kilometre. Any slip up at the front of the bunch, he'll steal it. No, he won't. He'll earn it.
Now it is the South African national champion as Bodnar into the tight left-hander.
It looked like he was sitting up. He was just having a check as he braked for that corner. Tight left, everybody upright, everybody smoothly through. This is where they start to...
Groenewegen, Bossenhagen in third.
Marcel Kittel, 5th win. And still at the end, no regular lead-out trains. Like we said earlier, he'd asked, just get me somewhere near the front. I'll come from behind, I'll pick him up. Thumbs up from Philippe Gilbert as well. And then he just reminds everybody how many wins Marcel Kittel has got so far in this Tour de France.
Yep.
Unstoppable.
That'll be 5.
But I gotta say, I'm really disappointed for Matej Bodnar, ride of the day.
Yeah.
We talked about him maybe getting into the last kilometre. He got to the last 350.
So today's stage was 203.5 kilometres. Bodnar was off the front for 203.15. 0.2, we'll call it.
I'll give him that. I'm happy to give him an extra bit.
There's no justice, is there? Sport's not fair. Look at this. How far back has he come from?
And he's already swung out into the wind, around a lead-out man, around Bodnar. Comes back in. Maclay can't follow the wheel just there. No, it's Maclay further back. That's the lead-out, right? That's Vachon. Not really a lead-out, just pulling out of the line. But Kittel into the wheel of Matthews, in and away. Kittel has barely used a slipstream over that last 350 metres. Took him a bit longer to get over the top. But get over the top he did.
It's got to be Julien Vermont, doesn't it? No, Jack Bauer.
Congrats.
Oh, we said it yesterday after his victory. Number 4, that green just got a bit greener.
Looks like he's looking for Julien Vermont.
He'll be looking for all of his teammates, waiting until they make their way in. It's Greipel a long way in the background. And as we predicted, it was going to be a German. And most people were predicting Marcel Kittel. He did make it come true, but there was so much work to be done to catch Matej Bodnar. So many riders having to lay it down in the chase.
There he is, the hero. That's Marcel Kittel's hero. How was that expression on his face? Sure, it was a warm embrace with everybody else, but that was warmer.
Here in the Stadium of Living Waters. That's some whitewater rafting. And Kittel, he was doing a little bit of whitewater rafting of his own in that sprint, coming from where he did a long way back, which we've seen him do a lot, but now swinging really wide to get around. No change in the overall. Chris Froome still 18 seconds ahead of Fabio Aru. Romain Bardet in third, 51 seconds. 4 riders still within a minute as we're about to hit the first really big mountains of this Tour de France. Tomorrow, we hit the Pyrenees.
And a mountaintop finish. Team Sky at the front, Quick Step. They're a team that have got 2 riders in the breakaway. The green jersey, Marcel Kittel, and the Kiwi, Jack Bauer. And they've also got the 6th place rider overall, Dan Martin, sitting in the peloton. So we caught up just moments ago with Tom Steele, their sports director in the team car. Here he is, talking to Anthony McCrossan.
Tom, it's a mountain day today and Marcel Kittel is in the breakaway. That's very unusual. What was the thinking behind that this morning?
No, we just had to watch out for Matthews, and Matthews jumped to make a cross breakaway. We already had Jack Bauer in, but also Matthews jumped. So for the intermediates also, Marcel was with him. So it was actually a good thinking of Marcel.
And now that Marcel and Jack Bauer are both in that breakaway, I guess it's going to help you if Dan Martin then goes on the attack later.
Yeah, but I think especially Jack in the front is okay. I think Marcel will save his legs. Once again, they're going to speed it up. But with Jack in the front, we still have somebody there. If something happens, that could help Dan also.
And finally, what do you see happening on today's stage when we get out of this rain and into the final mountains?
Well, it's a quite tricky stage. The roads are wet. We already had a quite tricky descent. And there's still 3 hard climbs to come. So we'll see what happens. But it's not going to be an easy day. It's a long stage. And at the end, I think the strongest riders for sure will survive. It's not an easy stage, that's for sure.
All right, Tom Steels, thanks very much for joining us. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, you can hear from Tom Steels, a super experienced professional, 4-time Belgian national champion, winner of Tour de France stages, sprinter extraordinaire, also standing on the podium in Paris-Roubaix at one stage in second. But everything sort of, for Tom Steels at least, the way it's played out, and when he was questioned about it, all seemed fairly obvious to Tom. He said, well, Marcel Kittel is up there because Matthews jumped, and we said keep an eye on him. So he did, and he's up there. When asked, well, will that be important for Dan Martin to have those 2 riders up there to help him later on? And Tom flatly, no. He said yes to say, yes, I understand your question, but no. Because when they're climbing, and Dan Martin, if he needed any sort of assistance, they're not the 2 riders that are going to do it. What he did say is, if something happens somewhere and he needs assistance, like if he had a puncture in a valley or on a descent and those guys happened to be there, that's just when the catch was made, then they could be handy. They're not going to help him uphill. Just like Dan Martin can't lead the sprint out for Marcel Kittel.
Exactly, but they're
horses for courses.
They're helping themselves. This has been a great job by both Jack Bauer, the man at the front in the blue colours, and Marcel Kittel, his teammate at the back in green. Still Luke Rowe and Christian Knies at the front of the peloton. They haven't hit the base of this climb, not just as yet. The Col de Mont, the next climb that they will tackle. It's then into the Valley Road before they hit the Porte de Valais, and then on to the Col de Peyresourde before they head to the Category 2 climb at the finish line in Périgueux. A different approach to what we saw here in 2012 when there was some controversy between Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome, as Froome was dropping the yellow jersey and Alejandro Valverde went on to win the stage. However, Alejandro Valverde, unfortunately, not in the race this year, The approach to the finish line from 2012 was different to what we see in 2017. They've chosen the much harder option. The last 500 kilometres, the steepest part of the final climb today. And there can be time gained or lost depending on which side of the coin you fall on. Not looking super organised now at this point, the breakaway group. They're about to hit the base of the climb. Diego Ulissi is the rider at the front from UAE. And you can see those that are 6 foot plus, the heavier riders, are starting to congregate together. Stefan Kung, Niels Pollitt, Emil Iveti, and also Jack Bauer and Marcel Kittel. The big men, they'll find this climb a lot tougher than the previous few. De Gent wants to maintain the momentum. He's won 10 World Tour races, Thomas De Gent, every single one of them from a breakaway. And now Marcel Kittel, he lets the group go. Jack Bauer is holding on for now at least. And Jack Bauer, if this was at the back of the peloton as opposed to the back of the breakaway, he would drop off and he would stay with Marcel Kittel. But Marcel Kittel's got a whole group of riders behind him that he can join up with a little bit later on. So Bauer should be given the freedom to stay here for as long as he can.
Marcel Kittel is totally safe. And you see, well within himself, he just realises this climb is going to get too hard. I'll just ride my tempo now and work on saving his legs, conserving energy as much as possible, and relaxing and just waiting to get swept up by an appropriate group. But from here, he doesn't even really need a group. He'll be well within the time limit. And we did say that he was most likely to be offloaded first, and it was going to be his choice when he went. He wasn't going to go into the red zone, heart rate wise.
No point.
Wasn't going to blow up before he got dropped. Just say, well, enough's enough. It's been good. I've defended green, even though it looked like Michael Matthews got him there. And by the way, have we had confirmation of that intermediate sprint?
Michael Matthews. So the gap now is 130 points.
Yeah. So all Kittel had to do was follow. He did try to pass, but like I said earlier, Matthews need to make a short, explosive sprint of it, and he managed to hold him off. So why wouldn't he do that on a flat stage and a bunch sprint? Well, you just can't choose to make it a short, explosive sprint because the lead out is starting from so far out, and they're already launched at over 65 kilometres an hour when the sprint starts. You don't have the opportunity to lower the speed, use a lower gear, and use your explosiveness to get a little gap and hang on to it like that. It's a totally different type of sprint, going a one-on-one, especially for an intermediate sprint, as compared to a full bunch sprint at the Tour de France. So different ballpark.
And Marcel Kittel, no matter what tactics others have thrown at him, in the mistakes that he's made himself, he still had the horsepower to correct them. And as you've made reference to a few times, with your jaw almost touching the ground, Kittel said everything went right for him yesterday. Oh, you mean having to start your sprint from 300, 350, go the long way around on your own without any teammates to let you out, and traffic to dodge on your way through? Yeah, perfect.
I suppose perfection is judged in the result.
But seriously, from that position, he had everything against him, didn't he?
Well, most other riders, if they were put in his position yesterday, where Marcel said, yeah, everything went right because he won. Any other rider in this peloton, if they were then asked about having to come from that same position as Marcel, I'm sure the quote would have been something like, everything was going right until 350 metres to go, when I had to swing wide and pass Bodnar and the Cofidis lead-out guy in the wind on my own, find my way back into the slipstream for a moment and try and go. And it would have been a case of, and then I just didn't have the legs anymore because it was too far and I was in the wind. When Marcel said, yeah, it just went right because I just kept going all the way to the finish and I had to come up with a victory salute and I've run out of different things to do.
And then he won comfortably. Number 5 this year, number 14 in his career. Ulissi from the UAE team. Diego Ulissi has made a stage win in the Tour de France his mission for the season. Throughout his career, he's won 6 stages in the Giro d'Italia and just focused, as an Italian rider, on the Italian races, which is perfectly understandable. But he wants to show that he's more than just a man who can win on home soil. instead of doing the early season races in Italy, like Torino Adriatico, he's done Paris-Nice. Instead of doing the Tour of Suisse, which is a little bit more familiar territory for him, he rode the Criterium de Dauphiné. He's ridden as many races as possible on French soil, as they're now on to the Col de Mont, and this is a tough climb, just short of 7 kilometres, average gradient of more than 8%. Now is the time where we might see some changes out in front. Steve Cummings in this breakaway, the British national champion, who you can see sort of midway down. He's just behind the blue jersey of Jack Bauer. With a guy like that in the break, who whenever he gets in the move, it normally succeeds and he normally wins. What does it do to your confidence? Because you'd be pleased that you've read the tea leaves correctly, but you'd be concerned about the fact that you are with Steve Cummings.
You'd definitely be concerned. But one guy I think is a match for Steve Cummings in terms of physical ability, timing, nous, being cunning, is the Italian, Diego Ulissi. He's won a number of Grand Tour stages in the Giro d'Italia.
Good catch then by Steve Cummings. He almost dropped his glasses and he managed to catch them. Soft hands. Might have played cricket as a kid.
Still lucid, still fresh.
So composed and still riding a tiny gear. Just pedal, 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 pedal.
Just putting the vests on now. Steve Cummings zipping up. So that little bit of protection. Temperatures drop a little bit. You don't want to get that cold breeze. Well, the wind generated by your speed downhill. Just getting on the chest, giving you a bit of a chill. Also don't want the body temp to drop too much.
And now we're in the drops at the front because they're about to start the sprint for this climb. And Michael Matthews here will want to take points away from Thomas De Gendt because it's his teammate Warren Barguil who is the leader of this classification. And Barguil with the vest, with the polka dots. Leader of the King of the Mountains classification, the Maillot au Pois.
His teammate Michael Matthews trying to keep it that way.
And Team Sky trying to keep the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Chris Froome, who slips on through and gets a little helping hand courtesy of Andre Zeitz of Astana.
Before that, just a little rubber shoulders as Froome was coming through. And so Zeitz just moved on and said, no problem. On you go. You go through.
Polite.
As now, the break is on the descent off the Col de Mont. Very steep, very twisting, some really tight corners, a lot of hairpins as well. We saw them just come out of a couple of them. Again, it's Michael Matthews, as on the last climb, first over the top, and not just sitting straight up and waiting, pushing it, just letting it go, not attacking them, but not grabbing the brakes either and waiting, making the rest ride back up to him. Aero tuck in behind the motorbike. Niels Pollitt, he is at the back of the group. Steve Cummings just ahead of him. Vitti there. And Gautier just reaching into the pocket. Just keeping that fuel up. 70 kilometres to go. But just 4 minutes 45 now. So this group needs to get together. Michael Matthews just overcooking that one just a tad.
For the breakaway, this descent and the 10-kilometre Valley Road is really important as it's still a standoff within the peloton. It's their chance to get their lead back up perhaps to 5.5 minutes. And they'll need every little bit of time that they can get their hands on. The big Nikias Arndt at the front of the race. This year, the winner of the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. And Cannondale Drapac making their presence felt towards the front, protecting the position of their Colombian climber, Rigoberto Urán, who's in 4th position overall, and only a handful of seconds away from 3rd and a spot on the podium. Still Luke Rowe at the front of the peloton for Team Sky. He leads them across the top of yet another climb, followed then by Christian Knies. Job almost done for Luke Rowe. He'll have around about another 20-25 kilometres on the front of the peloton. It's Gogol at the back in the white colours from Trek Segafredo. A man that suffered a few falls, one of them yesterday, alongside his team leader, Alberto Contador. And what's Alberto Contador got left? He has said that anyone who thinks he's going to throw the towel in doesn't know him at all. Always fighting words from Alberto. But he also made the statement, with all the crashes that he's had, perhaps he'll have to wait for the Alps and just try and minimise any losses, stick with the big favourites on these couple of stages through the Pyrenees.
And Michael Matthews in the aero tuck. Curious if he'll think about trying to go on with it once he gets to the bottom of this descent. Next one there, looked like Thomas de Gent in the distance. That would be the obvious choice. First and second over the top of the Col de Mont, taking the points. 80 kilometres an hour in this descent. Not being able to see through the corners, but gauging his speed and his braking and his line off that motorbike at the front. The guys riding the motorbikes, they've always had a lot of experience in the Tour. They've done all of these mountains, all of these descents. Really good moto pilots.
Even you trusted them.
I'll tell you who the brave ones are. The cameramen sitting on the back.
No control, you're in the hands of somebody else.
It's kind of like being the navigator in a rally car, but you're not even able to tell them where to go. You're often not seeing where to go because quite a lot of the time they're facing backwards.
You wouldn't want to suffer from motion sickness.
Well, the pilot wouldn't want you to suffer from motion sickness.
Definitely not. You couldn't do that job if you did. And now we see they're starting to take that time back. The move of Michael Matthews to make the most of this descent. You can hear the squeak of the wheels trying to keep up with the group, the remnants of the breakaway.
For those at home, that wasn't the motorbike doing the squealing. It would have been the following car right behind the camera motorbike. It takes some skills to drive these roads because quite often the cyclist can take these corners faster than a motorbike or a car can manage it. These motorbikes, they're not MotoGP or superbikes. They're big, heavy machines, often 1,000 to 1,200 cc bikes with two people on them. They tend to bottom out a little bit as well, and they tend to drift a bit in these tight corners, so the cyclist can really put them to their limit, and the cars are often also on their limit trying to follow. And when you're near the back of the bunch, you hear a lot of squealing tyres in the descents like this, a really winding descent. Michael Matthews, aero tuck, sitting up, little bit of braking, entry, apex, exit, get back aero again.
At the back of the race, Steve Cummings in the white colours, just in front of the man in red, Niels Pollitt. Conservative, conservative, conservative.
I think Steve Cummings, just a little bit conservative, just backing off the group. You saw he was aero tucked down to keep the gap at what it was, but when it seemed he was going to catch right up to the wheel, he just sat himself up, stayed off by about 10 metres. And it's like I said with Michael Matthews, Cummings will be gauging the corners off the riders in front of him. And you also get a chance, if you're that far back in the group, you get a chance to see the first and the second guy go in. If they get it wrong, you've got time to adjust.
I'm really pleased to see these roads are dry. This is a fast descent.
This is a very fast descent. This side is even steeper than the side they just came up. On the lower sections of the descent now, so the gradient's starting to ease off. It's really the upper portion of this climb, well, this descent is very steep. Michael Matthews starting to look like he does want to go on with this.
He's making the most of the descent. It's not super technical, but because the corners are so fast, if you make a mistake, you can really pay the price, a very heavy price.
You can. We saw Michael Matthews just shaking the muscles, just trying to loosen things up. It's always difficult when you've come over a climb, sprinted for the top, and straight onto a descent where you're not pedaling. The legs are just still, but you do if you weight on them stationary. Lactic acid, and looking around like, and fellas, anyone?
Where are you?
Well,
Bueller?
The gap, to be honest, is about the same as it was over the top. So these other guys have ridden as fast down it as Michael Matthews. It's just that he put that sprint in to take the points ahead of Thomas de Gent. And now he is waiting.
Just dodging a hole in the road whilst he was in the process to make sure that he didn't get a puncher. And now he is waiting. Another good day out in the mountains for Michael Matthews.
People might have thought, wow, Michael Matthews nearly crashed there, but just that really quick flick of the bike. Very Peter Sagan-like.
Yeah.
But Michael Matthews is a guy who's also come a while ago from a BMX background. Quite a few good cyclists over the years have. Guys like Graham Brown came from BMX. Max van Heerswijk was also a BMX rider. Tom Steels was another one.
Stebar raced BMXs as a kid also. Zdenek Stebar, who rides here with the Quick
Well, he
Step
said he
team.
did all sports.
Yeah, all sports. BMX, mountain bike, cyclocross, track cycling, and road.
All sports.
All sports.
Obviously hasn't seen a football.
No, not interested. Now Michael Matthews, he slips to last position in the leading group. Hand up, service from the team car.
And the peloton at this moment, 5 kilometres behind, but less than 5 minutes behind. It's the speed of the descent, averaging around 60 kilometres an hour on the way down. That's with all those hairpins higher up. You saw Michael Matthews hitting 80-odd kilometres an hour on the descent. Really important now for this group to work together through this valley. It's about 10 kilometres to the real foot of the Port de Balès. This is Erviti on the front, Steve Cummings, bidden in the mouth, but moving himself up towards the front. I think he really wants to get things rolling.
Yeah, he saw that at the front, nobody was following the wheel of Erviti, so he wanted to maintain that roll in rhythm within the group. He knows that this 10 kilometres across the Valley Road is super important to their chances of being able to survive. This is not Michael Matthews, this is one of his teammates, and this is at the rear end of the peloton. It's Albert Timmer at the back of the group for Sunweb. Cummings still sitting on the wheel of Thomas de Gendt. And still looking so much more composed than Thomas de Gendt. Thomas de Gendt. Stage winner last year at Mont Ventoux. He's won at the Giro. He's finished 3rd overall in that race. And now the 5th place overall, Jakob Fuglsang, is paying the price for yesterday's crash. You can see the twist in his body. He needs the chiropractor. He'll be sore at the end of the day. He's nursing the elbow, and the compensation, it damages the rest of his body.
That is the first thing that jumped out at me when I looked at Fuglsang's position on the bike. Twisted, really nursing that arm, like you say, and it was always going to be a big ask to start today. Micro fractures in the scaphoid and the radius up near his elbow, and just look how they've packed that arm in and taped it up, but he's still nursing it, and it must be doing incredible pain to be now out of the saddle, supporting his weight. And even now, you can see he's trying to take the weight off that left arm as he's riding out of the saddle. It's incredibly difficult. And Fuglsang now really suffering. The man who won the Dauphiné was going to be the two-pronged attack, at least one side of it for Astana along with Fabio Aru. And now, under the pace of Kirienka, it's Fuglsang who's being ridden out of the bunch and out of contention.
And still for Team Sky, after Kirienka, there's Kwiatkowski, Nieve, Hanau, and Landa to come. And Fuglsang's already gone.
They haven't really started yet. Kirienka's not one of their climbers. He's a man for just setting tempo. Yes, he's on a all-category climb, but compare him to the guys behind him, he's not a real climber. Yeah, that's frightening.
It is. There's only 30 guys left, and you're saying he can climb. And look, we're seeing Pierre Rolland now be dropped as well. A man who's won at Alpe d'Huez and La Toussière mountaintop finishes in the Alps.
In his favour, though, in his defence, coming out of the Giro d'Italia, won a stage, probably a bit flat, a little bit drained from the Giro. And here's another man, Bauke Mollema, number 37, also performed well in the Giro d'Italia. This is Niels Pollitt. He's been dropped from in front.
And now Cummings goes. He's getting towards the top of the climb. 3 kilometres to go. He's been sitting the wheel of Thomas de Gendt. It's time trial now for the British national champion.
And you saw the first reaction of Thomas de Gendt. It was not to get out of the saddle and try and go with him. The hand came off the bars, wiped his face. He must have thought, uh-oh, that's too much for me.
We've seen this before. We saw it last year. This is the exact strategy that he used.
De Gendt not giving up. There's still plenty of points on offer at the top of this climb. But as far as the stage win goes, the riding is on the wall. Warren Barguil, he knows there's still points. That's Bauer. HC climb, points on offer. Barguil, he's cementing himself in that jersey for today. He wasn't going to lose it anyway, but any points he can gain is very good. Going through tomorrow makes him more likely to hang on another day.
This is an all-category climb, the highest classification, as Kirienka now is done. And there's only 6 of these climbs of this ranking in the race, so Warren Barguil really needs to get points here. And Alberto Contador. No reaction from Team Sky, but Alberto, he said this morning, if you think I'll throw the towel in, you don't know me at all.
This is exactly what we were talking about earlier. guys need to go on the attack. They need to try and go away from Team Sky near the top of this climb, take some risks on the downhill. I'm not sure Alberto Contador is prepared to take the big risks the way his Tour de France has gone so far with so many tumbles. But Contador, he's a fighter. He never gives up. He knows, get over the top, descent, it's straight onto the climb of the Périssord. Is an attack to take time or an attack to prevent being dropped sooner?
Or to try and win the stage.
He's got to go for something, and you've got to love his fight.
He's got a great attitude to try and fight and keep going. He's at 5 minutes and 15 seconds down.
But it's now Kwiatkowski. The pace goes up in the peloton. Kwiatkowski is taking control and riding the way back across.
And Contador looking for wheels. When he went across to Warren Barguil, not once did he ride through to the front. He just tried to stay in the little slipstream that was there. And this attack is about to be nullified. This is Emile Monard from BMC.
You see what was a compact group at the front as soon as Kirienka swung off and Kwiatkowski took over. Monard out the back, Martin out the back. Warren Barguil still just off the front, but coming out of the mist, the yellow helmets, the white shirts, Team Sky, Kwiatkowski. This is Mollema, gone.
And now, the Colombian national champion. Tish Benoot in the red colours, but one of the lieutenants to support Chris Froome. This is Primož Roglic going backwards.
That was George Bennett.
No, it was Roglic.
Oh, my excuses. It was too. Sorry, New Zealand. Don't want to create a panic.
Nervous twitch. A small bias watching the Kiwi sitting in 10th position in the overall standings. And Alberto Contador not working with Warren Barguil. He's really at his limits. Fighting his way back. He joins Thomas de Gendt. He can't afford to stay with de Gendt. He just has to do his own time trial in the hope that Cummings will falter.
More than Gautier getting closer to Cummings, who goes through 1 kilometre from the summit. I think it's more a case of Thomas de Gendt fading back to Cyril Gautier as this man pushes on. 56 seconds, so indeed that is right. Cummings is going away from these two riders, de Gendt and Gautier. Steve Cummings, 2 minutes lead, 31 kilometres to go. Just a kilometre from the top. He won't lose anything to the Sky-led peloton because they won't let Mikhail Kwiatkowski take risks on the downhill. It's not worth it for Chris Froome. They're not battling Steve Cummings for the overall. The guys in their group, like Aru, are the concern. Easy in the downhill. Cummings should at least maintain his gap.
Well, here he is with neutral service courtesy of Power Bar. That's just for a feed. Mavic provide the mechanical if there is any issue. Kundecourt and Julien Simon from the day-long breakaway now about to be caught. And Jakob Fuglsang is losing a big chunk of time today. He will end the day well outside the top 10 overall. Steve Cummings, he started the day an hour and 35 behind because he's been riding to save himself for a moment like this. In the terms of going to the casino, he's put it all on black, and this is all the chips he's got. Strong hand, though.
We've seen him do it before. You're gambling on 2 games. You're playing poker and roulette over there. You're a busy man. At number 93, he's getting busy with the final kilometre. He's going to take top points on top of the Porte de Balès. Steve Cummings, it's not about the points. It's not about spending time on the TV screen. He just wants one thing, and that's the stage win. He's got a couple to his name already, knows how it's done. He's been setting this one up for 12 days of this Tour de France. A lot of people were saying, Dimension Data, they're done. Now Mark Cavendish is out of the race. Edvald Boasson-Hagen stepped up, nearly took a stage. Steve Cummings, he's been waiting in the wings for a stage just like today. When he chooses one, it's mostly bullseye.
He grabs it with both hands. Soigniers on the side of the road to support their team. And we see collection, courtesy of Michael Kwiatkowski. He hands it over to Nieve.
We talk about Cummings and hitting the targets. It's far from a done deal. 2 minutes with 30k to go. A lot of descending, but this final climb up the Col de Périssord and then up here to Périgueux, it is a long way to go.
Almost across the top for Steve Cummings. But the favourite for the stage win still comes from the yellow jersey group.
I think you're right.
This is a race for points at the top of the climb. The battle for the polka dot jersey. The French, they love this jersey. And this is Barguil, the brave of Brittany. And he's showing loads of courage again.
Here's Cummings, top points for him behind. Barguil will be too late to take second.
20 points in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey, but no flinching from Cummings. He's trying to hold on to that 159.
He's not pleased about the points. He's pleased about being over the top and now onto the descent. And then we'll see what the gap is, the damage that's been done to Thomas de Gendt and Cyril Gauthier. A few moments ago, 56 seconds. Warren Barguil, he's on the attack behind. He does want the points. Just don't think he's going to get there for these two. And now Thomas de Gendt has turned his attention to getting points. That acceleration, it's not to get rid of Gauthier, it's to make sure he gets as many points as he possibly can. The bad news for de Gendt, he's being chased down by the KOM jersey himself, who will probably come over the top in 4th place.
There he is in second position for Thomas de Gendt, and now the battle to get 4th at the top of this climb and collect 10 points to defend his lead. The French have found themselves a hero. They've had a few already in this race. Lilian Calmejean has been one of them, and Bardet has also shown plenty of courage. But Warren Barguil is winning over the hearts of many. And he is fighting, clawing his way across this gap. There's Thomas de Gendt in second position at the top of the climb. So he's had a good day. He's accumulated points in the race for the King of the Mountains classification. There is Gauthier. And how quickly has Warren Barguil almost bridged that gap? And that shows us how quickly the yellow jersey group can close it down to Steve Cummings. Here he is now. He has to take some risks.
He knows it. 2 minutes to the peloton, led by Michael Kwiatkowski, out of the saddle, sprinting out of the corners, still getting the fluids in, Bidon overboard. And Steve Cummings ready to take the risk, gauging his descent by that vehicle in front of him. That's really handy to have, to know how sharp the next corner is. You don't want to look over to the right, because that is over the cliff.
And Gauthier just overshooting the corner, and Warren Barguil up the inside. He's now prepared to take some risks. He's managed to create around about a 25-second buffer on the peloton. He wants to have a go at the next climb.
Oh, Steve Cummings under brakes. Make sure he gets out, back in, hit that apex. Really important to get the right line. Out of the saddle, accelerate again. A sprint out of every corner. He needs to rely on Team Sky going down this descent conservatively. He can build up some more time.
There's been a crash in the peloton. No, it's Cyril Gauthier. He's overshot the corner again. Just like the previous one where Barguil came underneath him.
He's lucky it's an embankment and not a cliff.
Fingers crossed he's okay. He can get going once again. Cyril Gauthier, well, his hopes for today are gone.
He saw it coming. He bunny hopped the gutter. Front wheel grabbed when he hit the embankment. The way he went down, he sort of slid sideways across. I think he should be okay, but definitely the end of any challenge from him. Here's Team Sky coming towards that same point. I think they're already past it.
This is a chance for Cummings to extend his advantage. As you can see at the front, Kwiatkowski, who is the best descender from Team Sky, looking over the shoulder, making sure that Froome is safe. And they're keeping Froome in second position, the safest position. Numerically, there's less people that can make a mistake in front of him.
And there's guys behind him to keep an eye. That was not the peloton, that's the front group. A group that small, you cannot call a peloton anymore. Thomas de Gendt, he is riding in second position at the moment. And this will be Warren Barguil coming up behind him. Not far behind over the top. The two men battling for points on the KOMs.
Cast your mind back to Sunday and the descent of the Mont de Chat, where Richie Porte crashed and Dan Martin went down. Warren Barguil was off the front on his own, dangerous descent, and he didn't lose any time. Cummings.
This time gap's a surprise to me, 1:44, because Sky are being conservative. They've seen the crash of Gauthier. They didn't look like they were trying too hard on the descent. We know Chris Froome can descend, and I'm really very surprised to see it at 1:38, because to me, it looks like Steve Cummings is taking good lines, accelerating out of the corners.
Kwiatkowski is so good, and the instructions here for Froome, just follow your teammate. And the roads are dry, thankfully. That is good news.
Kwiatkowski, aero tuck, and he does make it look effortless. He doesn't look like he's trying hard to go downhill fast, but he does. Little bit of lock-up it looked like for Kwiatkowski, just a little bit of bounce, a few lumps in the road. Chris Froome following along. I think it's getting to the point where he's going to say, enough's enough, not too quick, nothing to gain, everything to lose.
He's got the flow, doesn't he, on the way down, Kwiatkowski. He looks so comfortable, so at ease, and if something does go wrong, he's the kind of guy that looks like he can correct it. 25 kilometres for Cummings, 1:37. The odds are against him, but it's not over yet.
Just making up this group, Rigoberto Urán towards the back of the group as well, the Colombian.
Contador is still in there. Nairo Quintana is still there. So too is Damiano Caruso and the South African Louis Meintjes.
Romain Bardet, he is right up there behind the Sky Train, but in the wheel of Fabio Aru. So the favourites are already lined up. Froome in second, but right behind his team, Aru, Bardet, Martin. And there they are, Fabio Aru in the Italian champion jersey, the green, white and red. As we go back to Steve Cummings and into the time trial position. Not quite at the bottom. This is that plateau section in the middle of the descent. So coming off the Port de Balès, got the gradients in the book, and 6 kilometres of descending, almost 7. And he's got a section now of about 3 kilometres. It's flat, dips down, flat again, until he gets onto the final part of the descent. He's then got another 6 kilometres fast downhill, brings him onto the foot of the Col de Peyresourde.
Number 21, Nairo Quintana, more than 2 minutes behind. Every time he's ridden the Tour de France, he's finished on the podium. And Jakob Fuglsang at 6 kilometres behind the yellow jersey group. He'll be lucky to make it to Paris, and perhaps he shouldn't with those injuries.
Well, I think that seeing his challenge falter so badly today, and because he is injured, I don't think it is a wise move to go on. Hats off for trying. With those fractures diagnosed, micro fractures, yes, but fracture is a fracture, and it's incredibly painful. They said, okay, you can continue if you can bear the pain. But we saw the position it was putting him in the bike, trying to nurse that injury. It was all crooked. Things stopped working properly. The next thing you get riding like that is pain in your knee. It just goes on and on. You get worse and worse. That'll be the end of Fuglsang.
The knock-on effect. The wrist bone's connected to the elbow bone, and so it goes until he was twisted and unable to use his legs effectively. Plus, he would have had a restless night last night. It would not have been a good night's sleep for Jakob Fuglsang. The cowbells down through the village for Steve Cummings. Just a 1 minute 35 second advantage. It's not a lot to play with still a lot of climbing to come. The yellow jersey group of Chris Froome, the calm before the storm. And a couple of teammates still there for Romain Bardet, and it looked as if Cyril Gautier is back in that group.
Well, he was ahead of that group over the top. He took the second place points behind Steve Cummings, third place points rather, behind Cummings and Thomas again, who's also in this group. Fabio Aru now at the back of the group.
Nature break it was, rolling nature break on the way down. De Gendt at the back of the group.
And having another go at it, Aru. Maybe he's asking Thomas De Gendt for a bit of a push. When you got to go, you got to go. If you can do it rolling, all the better. There are riders with teammates there from teams apart from Sky. Spoke about Bardet having a teammate in Gautier. He's been in the break all day. There's not much he'll be able to do for him. Actually, there's not anything he'll be able to do for him except hand a bidon. And once we get on the final climb, it doesn't really matter who is there. Gautier is there, and also Pierre Latour,
who's third in the race for the white jersey.
He'll be riding for himself. But honestly, there's not much he can do, if anything at all. In fact, you know what? There's nothing he can do for Bardet. He's got to go with the best guys and be able to attack. He needs to take time if he's even dreaming of winning the Tour de France.
Speaking of taking time, look who's taken some back. Steve Cummings, almost out to 2 minutes once again.
Well, this had been the expectation. I was really surprised to see that ticker go down to 1.5 minutes. And on this section, Cummings really giving absolutely everything. Team Sky don't need to catch him. And Kwiatkowski's not riding to pull back Cummings as soon as possible. And look at the difference in style. Kwiatkowski out of the saddle, looking relaxed, not looking like he's trying his hardest, as opposed to Cummings. This is not 56 kilometres an hour just here. I would rather say that that is the speed of Steve Cummings off the front.
There's the white jersey of Simon Yates, sitting in third last position in the group, with his nearest rival, Louis Meintjes, just behind him. Number 61 from UAE.
This is about 40 kilometres an hour, what they're doing in this group at the moment. And riders getting that last chance. Rigoberto Urán also trying to just have a comfort break before they get on to the finale of this stage. Kwiatkowski listening in the radio to instructions. Take it nice and easy. And I wonder if he's being told it's not about Steve Cummings. It's about the guys behind you. It's about Chris Froome. Don't push it too hard.
They've said all along, publicly at least, Team Sky, today's not about the stage victory. Today is about time gains, and it's the battle against Aru and Bardet in particular. The man that sits in fourth position overall is still a threat. Rigoberto Urán in the green colours, the ever distinctive colours of Cannondale Drapac. Good riding by Steve Cummings all day long.
Great riding by Steve Cummings. And today's ride, whether he wins or not, it's the culmination of 12 days of planning in this Tour de France from Steve Cummings. Not to mention the amount of hard work he's had to come back from those bad injuries from that crash in the Tour of the Basque Country back in April, get himself going again, first race back, dual national championship.
And his injuries were so serious, a lot of the training he did, it was indoors on the Zwift program as opposed to outdoors on the road because his body couldn't deal with the bumps.
Matthew Hayman style, won in Paris-Roubaix.
Rigoberto Urán at the back of the group. He said Rigoberto Urán, he's had a lean few years and everybody thought he should retire. He's still only 30. He's now won a stage in the Tour de France. He's fourth overall and he's got his swagger back. 1 kilometre before the start of the Col de Peyrasourde.
Well, we see how quickly, after Cummings has come off that little plateau section, we said he had 6 kilometres of descending to go to get to the start of the Peyrasourde. That has gone by in a flash. Steve Cummings hanging it all out there on this descent, railing every corner, knows that he needs every single second he can take.
And this shows us how this climb, one goes straight onto the other. No valley road, off the descent, turn and climb.
And that is very difficult. When you've come from a maximal effort like Steve Cummings has been making, that descent, kicking straight onto a climb, your legs hate you for it.
Really hard to find the rhythm.
It's very hard to get back in your rhythm, but Cummings, if there's one thing you can do, is stay calm, controlled, and ride the tempo. Let his legs come around, come back to him. And at the end of the day, that'll be the fastest way for him to complete that whole climb. He's not thinking about riding high speed right from the start, small gear, get the legs going again.
He starts the climb of the Col de Peyrasourde, 9.7 Ks, average grade in almost 8%. What is bad?
That is very good for Steve Cummings. And the Col de Peyrasourde goes basically always in the one direction. It doesn't twist and turn too much. You don't turn back into the headwind. It takes you straight up the side of the valley. Steep, but in one direction to the top. Over the top, it's only on this final climb you'll start to hit headwind sections, as hitting the wall is Carlos Betancourt.
And just a moment ago, it was Cyril Gauthier. Now at the back of the peloton, that is Pierre Latour, the fighting young Frenchman. And swinging to the left, Nairo Quintana is under pressure. He's drifting backwards. Game over for Nairo Quintana.
That's not just checking his rivals out, that is being dropped.
He has been ridden out of the wheel. It was 2 minutes and 13 seconds his deficit this morning. It'll be significantly more this afternoon.
Nairo Quintana has been saying he's hoping for an exceptional day. He's not getting it. He's on a shocker.
Contador is still here. He fights as he always does. The green for Cannondale Drapac, Rigoberto Uran. George Bennett is still there, the Kiwi. He's moving up in the top 10 overall.
This is Pierre Latour. He is fighting it. Compare his style to that of Steve Cummings. Quintana looking smooth, but much slower than the group in front of him.
Barguil still holding on at the back. So too is Caruso for BMC. 4 riders at the head of the race for Sky, one of them the yellow jersey Froome.
And the gap now starting to drop. 15 seconds has been now taken off Steve Cummings after the resumption of the chase, where Team Sky overcooked it at the bottom of the descent, turning onto the Perisord, gone unpunished. I can't believe it. Pierre Latour, he's just doing everything he can, battling to stay in contention for white. Nairo Quintana, he sees his Tour de France hopes going up the road and up in smoke.
If the Tour was his dream, the Giro was a mistake. He finished second there this year. He pays the price. Cummings is not losing a lot of ground. He's in with the shots. 1:35, 11 kilometres. It's getting really tough, though.
Oh, Mikhail Kwiatkowski back on the front of that front group. He is pushing at Warren Barguil. He looks like he is getting into problems now. Out of the saddle, rock and roll. And he's now on his own and off the back of that group. By how much? Metre by metre, more and more. Simon Yates at the back. Louis Meintjes in front of him. Dan Martin, George Bennett, Rigoberto Uran, Alberto Contador, Romain Bardet, Aru, Froome and Team Sky. The favourites all with each other, with the exception of one Colombian, Quintana. The guys who are in front of him who have already gone out the back. He's moving up.
Good ride today by Warren Barguil. The look across the shoulder, it's over for Steve Cummings.
He knows it.
That's the resignation.
And it's taken the pace setting all day of pretty much every member of Team Sky to bring this move undone. And I've got to be honest, I feel for him. It was not necessary for Team Sky to chase Steve Cummings, but of course they're entitled to go after the stage win. They're riding to win the Tour de France, and part of that is psychological wins. Chris Froome, he wants a bigger buffer. He only has 18 seconds lead on the man behind him in the Italian champion jersey, Fabio Aru. He needs more, he wants more. He's planning to do it today, but Aru beat him on La Planche de Belfi on a steep climb. It's not a lock that Chris Froome's going to win this stage.
Hats off to Steve Cummings. Now caught, he looks across. He was a member of Team Sky for a little while, and he bids them farewell. Once he's caught, there's no point pushing on. He tries to recuperate. Now, he thinks about his next day to attack. It won't be tomorrow.
I doubt it. Another big day in the mountains tomorrow, 101 kilometres, 3 major climbs, but at the moment, these riders not thinking about tomorrow, doing everything they can behind this man, Mikel Nieve, for Team Sky, trying to lead Chris Froome to build a bigger buffer in this tour. Fabio Aru looking comfortable, not sitting behind in the wheel, but they've got a tailwind. So they're not really slipstreaming. Aru, good position, waiting for a chance.
But comfortable enough to play around with some food in his back pocket. So he's got a little bit to go on the rev meter and moving the glasses, getting them off, ready to go. Maybe, or ready to hold on. Put your seatbelt on.
Aru behind Froome, the rest stacked up there. Contador, Bardet, Uran, and Mikel Nieve. I think he'll be able to go up and over the top of this climb if nobody chooses to attack. Nairo Quintana, they are riding out of sight. Here's the team car, some encouragement. But I'm sure when Nairo looks in the eyes of his team director, he'll see the disappointment. All fallen apart. Started on the first day with Valverde. Crashed out of the time trial in Dusseldorf. Nairo Quintana cracked already on the Planche de Belfi. And today, completely, and I don't expect him now to finish in the top 10 of the Tour de France.
The only way he can save his tour is a stage win. But Alberto Contador's climbing his way back towards the top 10. And the Kiwi, George Bennett, this is a historic moment in New Zealand cycling. This is the best we've ever seen a Kiwi climber in the Tour de France, and it's with the world's best. He's inside the top 10 and consolidating his position and composed enough to drink.
Of this group, everybody looking fairly comfortable, as much as you can be when you're 3 kilometres from the top of a Category 1 climb after everything that's already happened.
I'd never buy a couch off you if you said, oh, this is really comfortable. It's wooden and it's got nails sticking out of it.
We've seen guys struggling, we've seen guys going out the back, but all these riders here, probably the one that's giving a slight sign of doing it tougher than the others is Alberto Contador. Always looks a little bit rough around the edges, but also from the past days, I think he's on paper the most vulnerable at the moment, holding good position, not dangling down the back. Romain Bardet also looking good.
What a fighter, though, Alberto is.
And Chris Froome, you can't tell if he's feeling good or feeling bad. He looks the same.
That's when he's on the rollers warming up. Simon Yates at the back of the group. Louis Meintjes, number 61. The blue of Martin. It's then Bennett in the black and yellow. Rigoberto Urán for Cannondale Drapac in the green colours. Contador, then Bardet, Aru, Froome, Landa, Nieve.
And at the moment, with the pace that Mikel Nieve is setting, nobody in that group is thinking of attacking. That pace is so hard. They're at their limit that they could hold to the top of the climb.
How difficult is this psychologically for Nairo Quintana, a guy who has never missed the podium at the Tour?
Blown him away.
Super tough day for Nairo Quintana. It was Contador is starting to struggle. He cracks. He's got so much courage, Alberto Contador. He fights beyond his physical limits. He'll make it back to them, I think, on the descent. They're almost at the top of the climb. Contador keeps on fighting.
I said he was the one man I thought was looking most likely to crack, a little bit ragged around the edges. Nearly made it to the top. He'll still be in contact and should be able to descend back onto the back of them. It's only 2 kilometres descending, and then they swing left and on to this final climb up to Peyregoud. 2.4 kilometres at an average of 8.4%.
And look at Contador, the gap has really opened up. He was deep into the red zone, and that's why it's impossible for anybody to attack. Even though Contador is a long way from his best, with age and injuries from the crashes, this tempo is rapid.
Well, look at the faces. Landa still in control. Nieve's suffering a little bit, but still fairly relaxed. Aru also relaxed. Down towards the back of the group, Simon Yates, Meintjes, George Bennett starting to grimace as they come over the top of the KOM.
The top of the Col de Peyresourde, a point where Chris Froome attacked last year in the Tour de France for the descent, then down into Bagnères de Luchon, and he caught everybody by surprise. 10 points in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey for Nieve, but nobody was thinking about points. They were thinking about the wheel in front of them and staying in contact.
And then there were 10. Alberto Contador really will have his work cut out to get back onto this group. Nieve into the aero tuck, down on the top tube. Land up, Chris Froome stretching the legs a little bit, getting ready for this final 3 kilometre pitch up to the finish in Peyregoud. 8.4% average for 3 kilometres, but the last 500 metres, a wall at 16%.
There is plenty of opportunity to wait patiently for that last 500 metres. Time can be taken there. 4 kilometres, 1,500 metres of descending still to come.
That last 500 metres is going to feel like a kilometre. It's going to break people. The gaps won't be huge, but the gaps will be there.
And Nieve at the front for Sky has broken Quintana at the back for Movistar as he crests the top of the Peyresourde with Warren Barguil just in the distance. Here's Nieve at the front, followed then by Landa. Chris Froome, he knows the roads well. He knows the region, although he overshot the corner coming to the bottom of the climb, made a real mess of it.
And I'm really surprised with that mistake. And it was Mikel Nieve who missed it first, threw off Chris Froome, but he wasn't taking the right line in the first place. Kwiatkowski, he got it just right. Maybe it was the speed of Kwiatkowski, pulling the others in so quick, not quite as good at descending and taking corners as him. As these riders now, they spot the corner, and they're about now to swing onto in 50 metres or so. Left, On to the final climb.
Here it is as we head to Perigord. 2.4 kilometres of climbing. That's all that remains. The battle for yellow. Can anybody challenge Chris Froome?
And this is a part that can really hurt. They've just done the Perisord over the top, that fast descent, not a pedaling descent, and then swinging onto this straight up again, and positioning important. Back of the group, Nieve still on the front, through the crowd, it's narrow, it's strung out. If you want to get to the front, you now have a lot of ground to make up for guys like Yates and Bennett, but at the moment they look happy to follow. But who's got the stuff to go on the attack?
Not Alberto Contador. He's trying to limit the losses. Bennett in second last position. It's Yates who's at the rear.
Nieve swings off. It's now over to Landa.
This is Quintana at the front, Caruso in second position, Barguil at the back. This is Landa now at the front. Nieve, job well done again. The
What a
pressure is
job.
on.
Landa, and that tempo is not pushing it. Landa, possibly thinking a little bit of his own interest, could lure out an attack from someone else. They think the tempo has dropped. I'm getting more comfortable. It's time to go. I'm attacking Chris Froome. Fabio Aru out the saddle. The man most likely.
There he is in third position, the Italian champion. 10 years on from winning the Tour de France for the first time, Alberto Contador. Father Time and the crashes have caught up with him. Landa at the front. Quintana, Caruso and Barguil. The race, though, is with the yellow jersey. And here it is.
Aru just looking around at the rest. Had a look behind, trying to gauge. Pinned on the barriers at the moment. Bardet behind Aru, Uran, Menkes, Martin, Bennett, Yates. That's all that's left.
They're still holding on. This is the most entertaining, boring ride I've ever seen by the Kiwi. He told us that would be his strategy. Very good, George. Very good. Behind him, Rigoberto Uran, Louis Menkes, the South African, and the young Kiwi, Bennett, followed by Yates at the back in white.
800 metres to the line, the KOM, and board George Bennett.
Bennett is the first to go. The Kiwi, he said it'd be boring. He's been anything but. It's Bennett who is prepared to take the risk. Froome won't chase. He's got a little bit of ground to play with. He's nearly 4 minutes behind. It's a chance for a stage win.
Landa riding tempo, trying to reel Bennett back in. Bennett back out of the saddle. So is Landa, now working, closing the gap. A little sprint from Bennett to get the gap, but he's paid for it now. Landa back in the wheel. Bennett needs to regather, get ready for this finish. It is about to really kick up.
Somehow Bennett needs to get his composure once again. Menkes at the back with a look of concentration, steely determination. Now Uran is coming forward. They're lining up as if it's a sprint, but it's a wall.
And as they look up, they'll see it. This is the final straight, 350, but it is a long way to go. It's like we're looking down from a tower, and Aru is the one to go.
It's Fabio Aru with the quick response. Aru, a small gap. It's Martin who gets not into his slipstream, but makes contact.
Dan Martin, he can taste it. Aru keeps looking, keeps pushing. It's so steep. Bardet's coming. Aru looks to be moving away.
And Froome, the gap is opening up. He was vulnerable if only they went earlier. Bennett, he fights at the back. So too does Yates. The yellow jersey of Froome. The time, and with the time gap, it could be Aru who moves into yellow, but Bardet now comes forward. It's an arm wrestle to the top. They're clawing their way across the final 100 metres. Romain Bardet, he'll get there first into Perigord. The stage win, the time bonus, and closer to yellow as Landa is not waiting for Froome. It's Bardet who wins. He smiles. It's Uran. It's then Aru. It's then Landa who has ridden selfishly and has not waited for the yellow jersey. As it turns out, Chris Froome today was vulnerable and they missed their moments. The new race leader will be Fabio Aru. 18 seconds has ticked over. Throw in the time bonus. The Italian champion is into yellow.
We said this final 500 metres would split them, that it would blow apart. Who would have thought that Chris Froome was unable to respond? And who would have thought that he would effectively be attacked by his own teammate, Landa, leaving Froome to his own devices? But in fairness, there's nothing you could do for him. It was literally every man for himself on this wall up to the finish.
Don't be so forgiving. He should have been at least next to him, encouraging him.
It is a huge sign. Landa is riding for one man.
Landa, we said it on stage 5. This is Alberto Contador, who is on his hands and knees, almost caught by Quintana.
I'd said Aru the man most likely. He was the one who placed the attack. It turned out to be from too far out. 200 metres was like trying to sprint for 750. It was Romain Bardet who outlasted the Frenchman who won on the Mont Blanc last year. He's got his stage win in the Tour de France. France has their hero. They have their stage win. Another one to go alongside Demar. Alberto Contador limiting losses. He'll be outside the top 10.
The average speed for the stage, 36.8. That is quick on a day like this of 214 kilometres. Here comes Nairo Quintana. He has caught Contador. Warren Barguil also fights on. He's improving his position overall. A little over 2 minutes, the deficit for Quintana. He can still get something out of this tour. Barguil has got plenty. The King of the Mountains jersey. Caruso a good ride. And Alberto Contador fades, but not Bardet. His third Tour de France stage victory. All of them in the mountains, all of them emotional. The tears begin to flow. And all of a sudden, this Tour de France is a lot more open than many thought, with just 300 metres to go.
It was worth the wait. The tempo of Team Sky all day, riding for a win for Chris Froome. And in the final 250 metres, he got found out. Chris Froome
seconds.
Gives away 22 seconds to Bardet.
So
20
Bardet,
seconds to Aru, plus the 4 bonus.
Yep.
Aru in yellow by 6.
And he is. And now we see Bardet. He moves himself up to just 17 seconds behind Froome and about 21 seconds behind Aru. We'll wait for the confirmation.
But about 19 for Bardet.
You can throw a blanket over them.
He was 51 behind going into the stage.
And here it is, the general classification. It's 25 seconds. We were close. It's Froome in second position, then Bardet, Uran, Martin, Yates, Landa, Quintana, Bennett up to 9th, and it's Meintjes in 10th position.
Well, Matt, let me put this to you. I had it suggested by a certain cycling fan on Twitter that we're wrong about Landa riding for himself, that he was riding to eliminate the time bonus for Fabio Aru and protect Chris Froome. Bit far-fetched.
That's in fantasy land.
It's possible.
Look, it's not. There's
but
no way.
Doubt
Look,
it.
There he is, Landa. He was not going to catch them. And there's the yellow jersey, Froome. He should have stayed with the team leader.
But there's nothing he could have done for him either. He's not allowed to push him.
Encourage him.
No, he hasn't got the breath to encourage him. He's on a 16% wall. You're not talking to him. You're not trying to... You can't help him at that point. Landa, I do believe, is riding for himself. But in the final 250 metres on a 16% wall, there is nothing he can do to help Chris Froome. But what he has done is probably dented his morale and brought his own allegiance to Chris Froome into doubt.
What about the cohesion in the team? Sticking with
That's
him
what
for
I'm talking
cohesion.
about, the cohesion.
And then you go back to stage 5, where he did not do a single turn of pace. 2 guys that stuck with Chris Froome and then blew up and got dropped. He rode past them and protected his own position in the general classification. We noted it on that day, and it's come to play here again.
And at the moment, it's more psychological than physical. He couldn't actually help him get to the finish quicker, but I don't think it's going to help team cohesion. I'm with you there.
So can we agree that he did the wrong thing?
No.
No. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Bardet won the stage, and that can't be disputed.
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Geez, less than 2 minutes. The top 4 by 35 seconds.
Incredible. And we've got another big climbing day tomorrow. Not an uphill finish, but I think it'll be exciting. Nonetheless, if someone like Bardet can take the bit between the teeth and go on the attack on the last climb, there's a long descent. We've seen mistakes made today. And at Team Sky, it seems to be a case of keep calm and continue riding.
You know what Vincent Lavenu is doing tonight as we see Steve Cummings come across the finish line. Once he was caught, geez, he really did go into recovery mode, did he? Didn't he? There is Cummings, the British national champion. I think tonight, Vincent Lavenu, the manager of AG2R Le Mondial, will be doing a rain dance.
And I think the
psychological rain is good.
The psychological games are also going to start from the other teams, directed at Team Sky, and their apparent lack of cohesion with Landa. And we said it when he went to the front. That tempo he set when Nieve swung off was nowhere near the intensity. But looking at Chris Froome's performance, he may have said, ease back, save something, don't go so hard yet. And that could have been the sign to Landa, oh, my leader's suffering, might be time to leave him.